Hello everyone. Today I have prepared for you 10 scary stories from Reddit. Enjoy watching.
The first story. So this is a very long story. My old middle school does this thing called a candygram, and you pay for a note and a candy to be delivered to a friend. This was usually during the holidays/fundraising season, and overall, I never really got one. Yeah, I have plenty of friends, but what kind of middle schooler is going to pay $5 for that kind of stuff? Halloween of 2022, I was in my first class of the day, advisory, and like every other year, they were passing out these candygrams. Imagine my surprise when one was given to me. I initially assumed it was from my best friend and that he just wrote something stupid. Nope. Instead, it just said, "You are cute. Love, Anonymous." I was elated. Nobody ever had much interest in me at that point, and the thought of someone going out of their way and spending money on me was very flattering. I show my friends in advisory and then move on to the next class. Except this time, someone knows who Anonymous may be. They say this girl in their advisory has a massive crush on me, but they won't tell me who. After a bunch of guessing, I settle on one person. Her name is Trisha, and she is a friend of a friend. Up to that point, I had only talked to her once during a gym period, and I had to be reminded of what she even looked like. The day goes on, and we have a Halloween assembly. Everything is normal. On my way out of the gym, I look behind me to see if any of my friends are nearby, and lo and behold, Trisha is standing behind me. The reason I remember this so vividly is because she slipped on a purge mask as soon as we made eye contact. I sound like a bad horror author, but I shit you not, that is what happened. Needless to say, I ran away and did some legendary trick-or-treating that night. The next day, I opened my locker to a pink, folded-up piece of construction paper. It is a poem. Roses are red, violets are blue. You are for me, and I love you. Secret lover. I'm looking at it as I type this right now. I run over to my friend and we are both bent over laughing because what the hell? The next weeks I have about 2 notes in my locker every day, but here are the worst. Your feet probably smell amazing, heart, from The Watcher. She's never even been near my feet. You smell nice. Never been within 10 feet of this girl. Hi love, it's me. I love you. Have a nice day. Heart from Stalker. Why would you ever call yourself a stalker? Most times my friends would see her slip the notes into my locker during passing period, and once I even saw her do it myself. In about a week, all my friends know every detail of this fiasco, and they all found it pretty funny. Honestly, I did too. Remember that friend of a friend? Well, she and I are very close, and she lives within 5 minutes walking distance of my house. She said when her and Trisha were hanging out, she kept bringing me up and asking questions about my family. Then, she asked if my friend would show her my house. My friend insisted that she wouldn't, but Trisha was persistent. No matter how many times she said no, Trisha would ask and ask. My friend never did tell her my address, and she kicked Trisha out of her house. That same friend added me to a Google document that Trisha's friend group used to talk throughout the school day, and every single thing was about me. What I was wearing that day, who I was walking with, and how Trisha and I would make such a good couple. Trisha even wrote down my mom's license plate numbers in the doc. I wish I had screenshots, but even if I did, I don't have that device anymore. Mind you, I was 12 at the time this was all happening, so I was very stupid. And I make my presence known in the doc. I don't exactly remember what I said, but it was something along the lines of, "What the hell?" I add my best friend to the document, and he starts putting on a performance, claiming that we're a couple and Trisha needs to back off. Trisha says sorry, and it is all quiet for a few days. I go back to the doc to see if anything else has happened, but now it's just Trisha and I in it. She tells this story of how she was up all night crying while writing me an apology love letter and how she threw it in a fire. I have no clue why she felt the need to share all this. Now, I decided I was going to the counselor. I'm sad to admit that up to that point, I thought it was all really entertaining, but something about her burning things fucked with me. After I tell this whole tale to the counselor, Trisha gets pulled out of class. But guess what? They didn't delete the document. I'm still baffled that all she got was a reprimand, but was still left with a way to contact me. She says a bunch of weird shit that I have blocked out at this point, but I remember her saying that when they said my name during her getting in trouble, if you can even call it that, she had a huge pit in her stomach. Needless to say, I removed myself from the dock and didn't give her any more attention. Mind you, throughout this whole thing, I had never spoken to her in person. She continued to stare at me during lunch the rest of the year and ask people really weird questions about me, but thankfully, that has stopped now we are in high school. I occasionally see her in the halls, and I just walk as quickly as I can past her. Trisha, let's not meet.
The second story. In 2023, I was in Marmaris with my best friend, and on our first night in Turkey, around 11 p.m., we ended up at the fun fair by the beach. At first, it felt exciting and harmless due to the fact we just turned 18 and left college. We were just two girls on holiday, but something happened that still sits in my chest to this day. I do not know if I was overreacting or if we narrowly avoided something serious. While we were on one of the rides, I noticed a man staring at us. He was standing nearby the ride, just watching us specifically. Only us, with this intense focus. During the ride, my sunglasses fell off my head. When it ended, that same man came up and gave them back to me. I thanked him and walked off with my friend. We moved on to the next ride, and he followed and got on the same ride, and he sat directly in front of us and kept making eye contact with me the entire time. I started to feel genuinely nervous, and I could tell my friend did too. When that ride finished, the man came off, but he stood at the queue of the ride, watching us. Me and my friend decided to stay on the ride because now we were genuinely getting scared. We had one token left, so we decided to use it, and while we figured out what to do. During the whole ride me and my friend was on, the man kept staring at us, waiting, literally at the entrance of the ride. When the ride ended, I decided to pull out my phone and take a picture of him, just for safety reasons. And then, when we left the ride, he kept following us around the fun fair, but it kept giving me a terrible gut feeling. And then I looked at my friend and told her when I count down to 3 to take off our shoes and run as fast we can. He literally chased us through the streets. We ran for about 10 minutes. Eventually, we ran into a restaurant and hid. He must not have seen us go in because he kept running straight past. We stayed hidden until we were sure he was gone. What scares me even more is that he had a young boy, maybe 14, 15 years old with him the entire time. The boy was not walking ahead or playing. He stayed near the man, trailing behind him. Later that week, near our hotel, we saw him again. This time he was on the beach, watching a British woman sitting by herself. My friend and I rushed over to warn her. She was grateful, but I could not shake the feeling that if we had not acted when we did, something terrible could have happened to us. What could he have possibly wanted? Has anything like this happened to anyone else in Marmaris or Turkey in general? What does this sound like to you?
The third story. So, to start off, this happened approximately half a month ago. I've had this one private teacher for me and my friends for 2 years. About 6 months ago, all my friends quit 'cause that guy started charging extra, but me and this other girl decided to stay anyway. which led to me staying after uni alone with him in class for private lessons every Thursday. So this was, as I mentioned, halfway through June, right after the summer break, and the first Sunday I attended his class after a month. On that day, when I walked in, I realized I forgot to get my books, so I set my phone and stuff down on the desk and excused myself to go and borrow one from someone. Now, my phone doesn't have a password lock, but obviously I didn't quite expect him to go through it. When I got back, I saw him on my phone. Under the desk, his back faced the entrance, so I could clearly see him transferring my nudes to his phone. And when I called out, asking him to give it back, he deleted his entire contact on the whole and handed it over like nothing happened. Of course, I was too scared to confront him, so I got through the class anyway. Only when I got home did I realize that he went through my gallery, my DMs, and NSFW folders. I tried to consistently skip class after that, but I couldn't because my mom would force me to attend. About 2 more classes after that incident passed as normal, except he knew that I found out the stuff he did and tried to take my phone to go through it again in case there were other pics. Of course, I didn't know what to do, so I said I don't have any more of those nudes. He asked me to go home and take some for him, and asking explicit questions like if I would consider sucking him. I said no and left. On the way back, he kept calling me on my phone, yelling at me that I was racist because I refused him service while I talk and send pics to white men online. He went through my DMs, like I said, and yes, I do. It's more of a preference and not racism. And I guess he was bitter about it because he called my mom to say I missed class, and so she made me go in the next day because, of course, she doesn't know anything about whatever happened. I just prefer to not tell her. The next day when I went in, halfway through the class, he asked me to go get something from the next classroom, and when I did, he shut the door before I could leave, pressed me against it, squeezed my chest, and kissed me, even though I kept shoving him off. And I guess I froze for a while, 'cause he kept fingering until someone knocked on the door. I left right after that. The next day, he forced me some hush money, about $200, to not tell anyone about what he did, and since then, there hasn't been any more advances, but I still attend his classes since my mom doesn't want to search for another tutor. I don't know if I should tell her that I'd rather quit than stay here for 2 whole years.
The 4th story. A few years ago, I was solo traveling in South Korea after finishing a semester abroad in Japan. I was 21, still pretty naive and carefree. My friends had already flown home, so I figured I'd explore Seoul on my own for a few days before heading back to Japan and then home. I booked a hostel in Gangnam, a safe neighborhood, which had good reviews. But I made one big mistake. I booked a mixed dorm. I thought mixed meant a blend of people, but when I got there, it was just me, sharing a room with 5 men. I told myself it was fine, I was just there to sleep. Most people in hostels are chill anyway, right? For the most part, that turned out to be true. I even went out for dinner with 2 of the guys staying there, and they were really nice. But one of them gave me weird vibes from the very beginning. Something about him just felt off. I tried to brush it off, thinking that maybe he was just awkward or shy. I didn't want to judge too quickly. So I stayed friendly, but kept my distance. Still, the red flags kept stacking up. Every morning when I got ready and did my makeup at the little vanity table, he would just stand behind me, staring silently through the mirror, not saying anything, just watching me. When I asked if he needed something, he'd always say no and keep watching until I got visibly uncomfortable and irritated. He also kept asking me when I planned to shower. No reason he should be concerned about my schedule. He'd always ask what I was doing each day and wanted to hang out constantly. I politely declined every time. Then one day I randomly ran into him at a subway station, nowhere near the hostel. I had just visited Dr. Gung Palace, and when I was about to head back, there he was. I played it off, but it made me uneasy because what were the odds? I kept telling myself I was just being paranoid. I didn't want to cause drama, and honestly, I was still dumb and trusting back then. But my last morning was the last straw for me. I woke up early, half asleep, and drifted back to sleep. The next time I opened my eyes, he was sitting by my bedside, leaning over me, stroking my face and my shoulder. I shot up immediately and was like, "What the hell are you doing?" He didn't give me a real answer, but just mumbled something vague. I felt sick to my stomach. I got up, packed my things, and told him I was checking out. He kept following me around the room, trying to make conversation like nothing had happened. I dropped the friendly act completely and started snapping at him, asking him if he wasn't going to pack too, reminding him that his flight wasn't until way later. And then he said, "I really like you." I told him that was inappropriate, considering we'd only known each other for 5 days. He replied, "Sometimes you just know." He kept saying he wanted to meet again, maybe in Europe someday. We were both European, and tried to get my number. I refused. He pushed. Eventually, I gave it to him just to get him to back off, knowing I'd block him anyway. Nothing technically happened, I guess, but I still felt disgusting. And I was furious at myself for being polite for so long. But at the same time, being too firm might have triggered something worse. He felt unpredictable. That was the first and last time I ever stayed in a mixed dorm. I've stayed in female-only dorms ever since, and I've never had an experience like that again, thankfully.
The fifth story.
Hello, Reddit. This is my first post, so please be patient with me. I have been debating whether or not I should share my story or not. So far, the latter has been beat out. As I have grown older, I have been reflecting on this moment, and I am curious about your thoughts. I am a writer, so some of the details may seem suspiciously descriptive, as if they were written by AI, but that is just me. This is a long read. Sorry. TLDR at the bottom. A bit of context. This happened about 7 or so years ago, way more than 3 years, as I said in my title. I just wanted it to flow better. My family and I visited a lake in a state far away from our own for our first and last family reunion. Spoiler alert, it did not go well. Safe to say that the lack of AC during the hot summer month of July, different conflicting personalities, and 3 families in one Airbnb caused a lot of tension, and it all blew up on the 4th of July. After midnight, my mom got fed up and took me, 10F, I was sick at the time, with her to stay at a hotel. My sibling, 8NB, and Dad stayed at the house since they were enjoying themselves. We flew to this state, so we did not have a car, and even if we did, it most likely would have been blocked in by other family members' cars. After much squabbling about our means of transportation, my grandparents, who lived in the same state as us, let my mom drive their car to go stay at an air-conditioned hotel away from the family drama. Now we are getting into it. My mom and I drove through the dark, empty streets for a little while before we came across a motel, a familiar chain motel that we recognized on the side of the road. Since it was very late and my mom had a sick kid in the car, she settled in staying there for the night. Pulling into the circular drive, we saw movement beneath the trees of an island in the middle of the asphalt. As my mom pulled into a driving spot, a man dressed in all camo, smoking a cigarette, emerged from the shadows of the island, and once we got out the car, he asked, "Do y'all want a room?" To which my mom responded, "Yes, because why else would we be at a motel?" It was a little odd that this man, who I assumed to be an employee, was wearing full camo, hat, pants, shirt, and not a uniform. We walked into a little lobby, which was really just a small room with a computer, a front desk, and a few armchairs. He walked behind the desk, clacking away on the computer as my mom described the room we would like, a queen bed and non-smoke room. He nodded, commenting, "Are you two alone?" And I cannot remember if my mom responded, but handed us the key to our room. Not a card like I was used to, but a literal keychain. I thought it was odd, but then I brushed it off as a regional difference. This town doesn't get much traffic as the other popular cities around it, so maybe they don't have the budget or need for key cards. Then it got unsettling. He tried to make small talk, asking about what we were doing here, how we were liking the fireworks, etc., and then led us to our room on the first floor. Okay, that's not too bad, right? But then he opened our door and led us into the room while showing us around. The moment he opened up the room, the sickening stench of smoke hit us, even though we specifically asked for non-smoke room. He started twisting the knob to the air conditioning, turning on the bathroom light and opening the closet door, showing us where everything was. This was a tiny room, big enough for one bed, a thin closet in the wall, and two little nightstands, so the tour was unnecessary. My mom stood outside of the room, arms crossed and almost on guard. I, being exhausted, stepped into the room, holding my stuffy and blanket, ready to knock out and go to bed. As the man walked into the bathroom, my mom finally spoke up. "OP, come here." Her tone was stern, one that sounded like the pursed lip warning many kids get when they're in trouble, but this one held a dangerous edge to it. The man came back out and was milling around the room when she repeated herself under her breath. Eventually, I gave in, rolling my eyes in annoyance as I left the room. She grabbed me the second I crossed the threshold and moved me behind her. We walked back to the lobby to find a new room that was truly non-smoke, and my mom made sure to stay between us. While in the lobby, he made a comment that broke the camel's back. "You two are sure far away from home," as he rang us up, holding on to my mom's credit card as she looked at her phone. Even though I was young, this comment made my stomach twist, but I couldn't understand why. Suddenly, the lobby filled with ringing, the tune of my mom's ringtone echoing off the pale walls. "Oh, 1 minute, it's my husband," she said, holding up a finger to me as I prodded at her. The conversation went something like this. "Mom." "Hello?" "Hi, honey." "What was that?" Me. "Mom, who is it? Why is Dad calling?" "Mom." "Shh." Me. "Oh, are you with—" insert sibling's name. "We found a place." "Oh, okay, yeah, we will see you there." "Got it. Love you." Like the annoying kid I was practically tugging at my mom's sleeve, asking her where my sibling and Dad were. Mom brushed me off, gesturing for me to grab her card as she informed the man that my husband and kid are down the road. They already checked into a room, so we're just going to go meet them. I am still asking her about what was going on since I was very confused. As we made our way back to the car, I flooded her with questions, and she simply looked forward, clasping my hand. I hopped into the back seat, and we backed out, quickly leaving the drive. And in a nearly cinematic moment, my mom turns to me, finally answering my questions in the most jaw-dropping manner for 10-year-old me. I lied. Boom! I felt like my world exploded. I had always been thought about stranger danger and kidnappers, but this was a whole new territory for me, one that most women have to live through every waking moment. She filled me in as we drove, winding through the roads into town. While I was busy thinking about falling into a smoky and dingy bed, my mom was in full-on panic mode. Her mom instincts flared up the moment she opened our door for us, most likely trying to rationalize what was going on. Once we reached our room, easily accessed on the bottom floor with a key that the man most likely had a spare of and that did not meet our specifications, she devised the plan. While we made our way back to the lobby, blabbing about a new room, she had been texting my dad, telling him where we were and to call her. Their conversation went like this. Mom, hello. Hi, honey. What was that? Dad, are you okay? Mom, what's going on? Mom, oh, are you with, insert sibling's name. We found a place. Oh, okay, yeah, we will see you there. Got it, love you. Dad, huh? Cue utter confusion. Her worries were further confirmed with the man's strange and overly personal questions. The reality of the situation began to set in on me, a little part of me that was still innocent and naive to the ways of the world cracking. In the end, we found a safer hotel further into town with a pool, and we stayed there for the rest of our trip, later joined by my dad and sibling. Now on to the update that freaked me out even more. My sibling and I recently visited the town with our grandparents for a quick family trip, and we stayed at a house on the same lake where we had the reunion. On our way to the house, our car passed the charred remains of a building, gates and caution tape surrounding the area. My grandma pointed it out and informed me that it was the motel my mom and I had stayed at. It had burned down in October of 2023, and I have scoured the internet for any answers, and I have found none. The name did change from when we first went, but I was still able to find it. Let me know if you want to know the name in the comments. I feel like the fact that it mysteriously burned down adds to the unsettling experience my mom and I had there. After looking back at this moment with new, older eyes, I am very, very glad that my mom got us out of there. She has not, that I can remember, had a sort of feeling like that one since, and I have gained even more admiration for her. I will never know what would have happened if we stayed. And to the man in the hotel, let's not meet again.
The sixth story.
This happened a couple weeks ago. I'm a female dog walker, and I spend a lot of time by myself in various parks and forests, so I'm pretty aware of my surroundings, but haven't had anything happen until now. So I'm walking my little Lees, a pack of 3 small breed dogs, essentially the opposite of scary dog privileges law, and this man comes out of nowhere and straight up to me. Middle-aged, thin, and in shorts and a hoodie, but not ringing any alarm bells. He just looks like a normal guy. He strikes up a conversation, and I'm polite, just talking about the weather, etc., and thinking he's just a friendly stranger, when out of nowhere he says, I saw another lady dog walker yesterday, and she had a nervous dog, so I was trying to help socialize him, which is weird because it didn't sound like he knew the dog walker in question. And my assumption was confirmed when he continued, yeah, I know about dogs, so I took out my slip lead and tried to get him used to it, and she freaked out. For anyone who doesn't know, this is like a slip knot that tightens if the dog pulls on it. Then while I'm trying to process what the hell he's talking about, he takes a slip lead out of his pocket and shows it to me, at which point one of my dogs, who normally loves everyone, starts a warning growl. He just laughs, and I'm starting to feel super uneasy because he doesn't have any dogs with him, and why does he have what is essentially a strangulation device just in his pocket? Eventually, I manage to get away saying something about my dad waiting in the car, and he watches me walk away while my dogs keep growling back at him. Once in my car, I actually processed what he said and did, and everything my gut was telling me was off about the situation, and decided to call the police to report him. They take it seriously, and I've warned other dog walkers about him, but yeah, strange man with the slip lead and no dogs, let's not meet.
The seventh story.
Years ago, when iPhones and Ubers weren't a common thing, I almost got abducted. I was a 21-year-old girl living in Austin, Texas. I had just graduated and had no real clue what I was going to do with my life. I didn't want a corporate job like my classmates. I wanted to live and make art for a while. I had visited SXSW while at university in New York and fell in love with the wildness of Texas. It felt like the opposite of the life I had been living in NYC, so I moved to Austin to take a break and recharge. I didn't have a car, but I still wanted to explore. I walked and took the bus everywhere. I barely knew anyone. maybe a handful of people at most. One day, while heading home after exploring the city, it started pouring. Not just rain, but a full-on Texas downpour. I figured it would stop and home wasn't far, so I kept walking. But it got worse. I stepped in a hole and twisted my ankle. When I reached for my phone, I realized it was dead. Fuck. Now I was soaked, limping, and crying in the rain with no way to call anyone. I made it to a gas station and stood there for a while, unsure of what to do. I hadn't memorized anyone's number, and I didn't feel close enough to anyone to call them anyway. Then a beat-up pickup truck pulled up. The passenger door opened. I couldn't see who was inside, just a deep male voice. "Come inside? I'll take you home." I froze. I had always been told never to get in a car with a stranger, but I was desperate. I nodded and started climbing into the truck, still crying. "I promise you'll be safe." His face was completely in shadow. I was almost all the way in. I could hear his breath quicken. I could sense his excitement. Suddenly, I heard a woman shouting from the road. She was leaning out of the window of a small compact car. "Hey, are you okay? Come here now!" The urgency in her voice snapped me out of it. I got out of the truck and hobbled toward her. She pulled up right next to me and told me to get in. Unlike him, I could see her face. I trusted her immediately. She was kind and asked where I lived. I told her, and she drove me home. Before I got out, she warned me to be careful. She said there were people out there who would love to take advantage of a girl like me. I felt so stupid. Maybe the man in the pickup truck would have taken me home, but deep down, I knew he wouldn't have. I could feel it. I never saw her again, but I think about her sometimes. I hope she's thriving. And to the man in the pickup truck, let's not meet.
The 8th story. So I, 18F, hung out with this guy 21M, who had set me up 3 times before, but I was really bored and lonely. My actual crush said he felt like he was entering a depressive episode, and I didn't want to bother him, so I gave this other guy a shot. He picked me up and immediately threw me off. He looked strange, nothing really like his photo, but whatever. We didn't really have a plan. I already felt super uncomfortable, but I decided to give it a try anyway. He drove to a gas station to do whatever he needed to do. Then I said we should totally go to Dave & Buster's, and he said, might as well, so we went. He blew $40 on tickets, but we ended up giving the card to some kids because, in his words, I don't want anything. That part was fine, but after that, he started acting really weird. He kept joking about killing us while driving and swerving, and at one point he was driving with his knees and had both hands above his head. I don't know if he thought it was impressive or what, but I just stared at my phone and pretended not to notice because I was already so uncomfortable. Then he parked at a local park that was completely locked and said, "Oh man, it's locked." And I told him, of course it's locked, it's a town park and it's late. So he just sat there, parked, and I could feel that he was trying to make a move. I stayed glued to my phone, knowing exactly what he wanted, and eventually I suggested we head downtown, which is near my place. He said okay, but once again started swerving, speeding, and driving with no hands. I was so unbelievably uncomfortable. I kept dropping hints that I wanted to go home, but he wasn't picking up on any of them. We got downtown and he said he needed a smoke break, so he parked in front of a smoke shop and went inside to buy a cart while I sat in the car texting my friend about what a nightmare I was trapped in. When he came back, he started driving through random neighborhoods and kept pointing out secluded houses he liked, talking about which ones he could see himself living in. It was so creepy. We finally got back to the main street, And again, he randomly turned off and almost hit a pole. I asked him what he was doing, and he said, "Sorry, I'm impulsive," then launched into this whole monologue about his dangerous lifestyle. He had not asked me a single thing about myself the entire time. He just kept talking about himself. At this point, I was over it, so I tried to steer the vibe back to my house. I thought he got the hint when we were near my place, but then he randomly noticed a clock on the side of a Wegmans and said, "Whoa, that's so cool. I want to go see that." I said, "Yeah, I live near it. Obviously, I've been there." And he said, "Okay, smartass," and laughed. I didn't laugh because it just wasn't funny. He parked in the empty Wegmans parking lot and took off his seatbelt, moved his seat back, and kept giving me that look guys give when they want to kiss you. I was on my phone messing with my vape and scrolling to make it very clear that wasn't happening. Then he randomly said, "Okay, tell me about yourself." And I said, "Okay, ask questions." He just sat there in silence and said, "You clearly want to go home." I thought finally he got the message. I raised my hands and said, "Yeah, sure, whatever." But instead of taking me home, he started asking me questions again, so I was trapped yet again. I told him about my college plans, and then he started asking where my family is from and what my last name is. He then went on an entire rant how Nigerians are evil and how I must be toxic. The whole thing just felt weird. I think I've mentally blocked out some parts because it was that uncomfortable. Eventually, I said I was getting tired, and he finally agreed to take me home. But instead of going the normal way, he took the longest route possible, then missed my turn on purpose. I pointed it out and he said, "Fuck, okay," then turned around. We finally got to my house, and just as I was about to leave, he parked and pulled his seat back again. I just sat there trying not to show any fear because I really didn't want him to touch me. He kept looking at me, clearly wanting to kiss, but I didn't even want to look at him. Then somehow he started talking about Palestine and Israel, which I'm interested in because it's obviously a heartbreaking conflict. But then he started blaming Jews for everything, saying they run all the banks and basically control the entire world. I asked him if he blamed all Jews because that's what it sounded like, and he said no, but just kept going with more conspiracies. He said his family had to escape to Egypt, and I said I was sorry. He kept looking at me like he wanted to kiss, and I just refused to look back. Then he said he wanted to show me this ancient scripture of Israelite laws and pointed to something that claimed the age of consent was 3.5 years old. Mind you, he idolizes Kanye West and was wearing Yeezys talking about how Jews are all evil and should all die. I asked him, has he met a real Jewish person and spoken to them? All he said was, "Yeah, I work at a car dealership. They are greedy and cheap," and proceeded to burst out laughing. I was just frozen thinking, this cannot be real. That's when I said, "Okay, well, I really have to go," and tried to play it casual so he wouldn't touch me. I said, "We could hang tomorrow." And he said, "Okay, 4 p.m., are you free?" I lied and said I'd check my work schedule. I pretended to check and said, "Yeah, that works." I told him to text me when he got home and dashed out of that car like my life depended on it. The second I got inside, I texted my friend everything, made sure he wasn't following me, and immediately blocked him on Tinder and Instagram. I don't know what kind of person thinks any of that is appropriate on a first date, but I hope I never cross paths with him again. Edit. Hi, thank you so much for reading this and the criticism. I can understand how some of you feel like this is my fault because the red flags were there and yet I still stayed. I just want to know a few things. 1, I did kind of tell him he's acting a bit strange and he apologized, but then it happened again a few minutes after that. 2, I know he can't read my mind and I agree, so I will take all accountability for this. 3, I will keep note to always meet in public and not share my address. I live in an apartment complex and told him to meet me in a different building than mine so he does not know which floor or door I live. 4, when I say he led me on, we planned to meet up multiple times, but he usually slept on me or ran out of time. 5,
I understand I need to learn how to speak up and be more confident. I should have demanded him to take me home, but at that point, I genuinely felt that he would have did something to me because how much of a maniac he seemed. When he was swerving and laughing, I loudly said stop, and I didn't like that. At that point, we were already 20 minutes away from my house, and he apologized. 6. I did check Uber prices, and they were $50, hence why I felt trapped. I've gotten DMs asking if this is rage bait because how stupid I am for staying, and I apologize and have read all the comments and will take all advice. Thank you. Edit 2. I'm also neurodivergent, autistic, so please understand where I'm coming from when I say I felt like I couldn't defend or speak up for myself.
The 9th story.
I am an alcoholic, and I have been sober for 9 years. That is, without a doubt, my proudest accomplishment. I started getting help during my sophomore year of high school. Looking back, I'm so grateful for the timing. If I had hit rock bottom later, things would only have gotten worse. My parents actually transferred me to a different school so I could start fresh and meet new people. By the time I turned 18, a few months before graduation, I had already been sober for over 2 years. That was around the time I started aging out of most teen recovery programs. A lot of the counselors I worked with only focused on youth cases, so I had to start finding adult support groups. I grew up in Los Angeles, but not the touristy part. My neighborhood had liquor stores every few blocks and corner shops with thick plexiglass windows. Alcoholism was really common and normalized. So once the teen programs ended for me, I started going to early morning AA meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They were held in a small church near my school. I did not have first period on those days, so it worked out perfectly. After the meetings, I would usually stay for a couple extra minutes to write in my journal or just sit and quiet. One morning, this guy stayed after the meeting and asked me what I was writing. I told him I was journaling. He said he liked the idea and wanted to try it himself. After that, he started sitting next to me at every meeting. We would talk a bit afterward. He seemed normal. He was about my age. He knew I was about to graduate and asked if I planned to keep coming to that group during the summer. I told him I was not sure yet. I had just gotten a job across town and was looking into meetings closer to where I would be working. I could tell he did not love that answer. Sometimes you can just see disappointment on people's face. I used to talk a lot in those meetings. I did not go just to sit in silence. I brought energy into that room. I like to think I helped people feel a little better. I think he felt that too, and I think that is why he did not want me to leave. People have told me I talk too much, so maybe I'm just flattering myself and everyone else wanted me to be quiet, but I like to think I was making a difference. He asked again when I would be switching to a different group. I said I did not know yet. I told him I planned to keep coming through the end of the school year. I do not remember if I ever told him the name of my school, but I always wore royal blue and gold. He knew I went to school nearby, just around the corner from the church. It would not have been hard to figure it out. Then, in the last 2 weeks of senior year, everything got wild. We had senior ditch day, late-night hangouts, sleepovers, goodbye parties, etc. I missed the AA meetings at the church, and then I switched AA groups altogether. At graduation, everything was great, but that guy showed up. It was so off. He did not know me like that. I had never invited him. We were not close. But there he was, smiling at me from the back like it was completely normal. He came over afterward and said he brought a gift. It was a box of chocolates and a note about how much he would miss me. He said I should drop by the meetings again sometime. I uncomfortably said something like, "Thank you." I never went back. That whole situation was too weird. I did not want to see him again. Then he showed up at my new job. I was working the cosmetics counter at a big department store. The cosmetics department actually had its own cash register. The first time he walked by, I noticed him.
Then he came back the next day, and the day after that. He never spoke or asked for help. He just wandered around near my station, looking at me like it was no big deal. He did not even try to be subtle. Eventually, I told one of my coworkers, the type of woman who does not play. She walked right up to him and asked what he thought he was doing. She called him out in front of everybody. She said she knew exactly why he was there and that it was creepy and toxic. A few shoppers turned around to see what was going on. His face turned red and he walked away without saying anything. We told our manager afterward. The manager was glad we spoke up, but reminded us to let her know right away next time. There was no next time, though, since he never came back. I have not seen him since. Hopefully he got bored and moved on. I don't really care to find out what he wanted.
The last story.
Please note, English is not my first language. I'm also totally blind, so sorry in advance for some irregular spacing. This is going to be a long one, so grab a drink and a snack. TLDR at the bottom. So I live in Dublin, Ireland, in one of many assisted living accommodations. There is a reception, and there is staff there during the day and security guards at night. I feel very happy and safe living here. I even feel safe enough to sleep with my window opened a crack if it gets too warm in the summer. Until last Friday, I felt that once I get behind our gates, which are locked at night, I'm totally safe. Last Friday, it has all changed, however. Another thing you need to know is the fact that I absolutely love attending various concerts and shows at various venues here in Dublin. Since I cannot see, the view doesn't matter, so I get the cheapest tickets and go quite often. So, last Friday, yes, on the 4th of July, I was returning home from one such concert sometime after 10 p.m., 2200 hours. The taxi pulled up to the locked main gate. I buzzed the intercom in order to ask a security guard to let me in the side gate. I have the key, but the lock is stiff and fiddly. The key gets stuck once inserted and wouldn't turn. The security guard didn't answer after the 2 rings. That meant he had gone to one of his hourly patrols around the whole property. So the taxi driver offered to open the side gate for me, relock it, and then pass me the key through the gate. So that's what we did. Once I was halfway through the courtyard, the guard came up, apologizing for not being there. He has indeed been patrolling. I responded that it was okay. He helped me through the rest of the courtyard in order to help me dodge the parked cars. Then this gentleman brought me into our building, straight ahead through the reception area, then turning right towards the double doors, which lead to the corridor, which leads straight to my apartment door. Usually, this guy leads me to the double doors, opens them for me, and then lets me walk the rest of the way to my door unaided, as it is just a straight walk without any obstacles. Besides, I'm safe. I'm behind the locked gates with cameras all around. Nothing bad can happen. Right? Wrong. So I found and opened my door, entered my apartment, went to close and lock my front door, as I always do straight after entering, and found out that the door was strangely stiff. My first thought was, I must put in a maintenance request tomorrow or Monday. There is something wrong with my front door. In the meantime, I was determined to close and lock this door, but the more I tried to shut this door, the more it resisted. Then I realized with horror that there was someone on the other side of this door trying to prevent my shutting and locking it. This has really frightened me. I thought that whoever was on the other side of that door would force his/her way in and sexually assault me.
I threw my whole body on that door and pushed with all of my meager strength, but the would-be intruder did the same. At this stage, I really panicked and shouted, "What is it?" As soon as I shouted, I heard and felt the door close with a little slam. The instant that happened, I turned the lock straight away. After that, I just leaned against the wall and tried to process what just happened. Did somebody really try to enter my apartment just now? How come I never heard him or her walking behind me? Should I report this to the security immediately? But what if that was the security guard who tried forcing his way in? What if he tampers with camera footage? Are there even cameras in my corridor? And if there aren't, would I even be believed? I went to bed without reporting it, but the more I thought about that incident on Saturday, the more freaked out I became. So on Saturday afternoon, I sent my key worker a nice long voice message on WhatsApp detailing what happened the night before. I knew that she wouldn't get that message until Monday, but at least I reported it. I attended another concert on Sunday, and blessedly, nothing happened. I was able to open and close my front door on my return, no problem. Unfortunately, my key worker couldn't get to her work phone on Monday, but she got my message yesterday and first said she'll contact me in an hour once she has a word with the building manager. After an hour, my key worker requested a meeting between herself, myself, and the building manager. What the building manager had to tell me made me shudder. Apparently, the camera footage showed the security guard going the opposite direction to where I went in order to finish his patrol, but someone had indeed been following me in my corridor. You couldn't see the struggle at my door, but you can see that person running away. I was told that because of GDPR, the staff couldn't let me know as of yet who it was that tried forcing her way into my apartment. But we have contacted the police and are now waiting for an officer to come up and take my statement. I was also told that that person must have been looking for money and didn't have any sexual motives. I still want to press charges though, as I don't want something similar happening again, either to me or to any other resident of our complex. I was also given the option of a security guard walking me right to my door and making sure I close and lock it every time I return from one of my concerts and/or shows. I gladly took the staff up on that offer. So, to a person who tried to force his or her way into my apartment, unfortunately, we'll probably have to meet again, but I hope you will be in handcuffs when we do. TLDR. Somebody tried preventing me closing and locking my apartment door after I returned from one of my concerts. The update is a bit anticlimactic. So, the police has been. They were very understanding and sympathetic. They interviewed me and looked at the footage. It turns out that my would-be mugger or robber is a minor. I was told I could go ahead and press charges, but that kid wouldn't be prosecuted as he's a minor. But they would definitely give him a stern warning. I decided not to press charges since he wouldn't really be punished. I also don't know what his parents or guardians are like. Would they try to intimidate me? I do hope that the police would put the fear of God into that person so that she would think twice before trying anything like that again.
Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments and I will be very glad to receive your subscription to the channel.